coming to share in this celebration of Dennis Lee Scheibe's life. And we're going to start this off with a poem that my son is going to read, and it's called The Dash.
I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend, who referred to the dates on his tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of his birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. So that dash represents all the time that he spent alive on this earth. And now only those who loved him know what this little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love, and how we spent our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that could still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger, and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect, and more often wear a smile, remembering that this little special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash?
So now let's look at the dash between January 7th, 1957 and June 21st, 2024. Dennis was born January 7th, 1957 to Wilma and Leonard Scheibe in Alton, Illinois. He had one brother, Michael, and two sisters, Kathy and Susan. His father was a lieutenant for the Alton Police Department, and his mom was a cook, and she even had her own restaurant for a while. Dennis always talked about how frugal his parents were, and how that she would cook one chicken for the whole family of 5. And he learned how to eat a chicken, and he had the bones clean as a whistle. You could go any place, and I would have my chicken leg and that kind of stuff, and I'd leave a lot of meat left on it, and he would always take it, and when he was done, there was nothing left but the bone. His parents did take the kids on several vacations to a lot of the national parks and different places. Dennis was especially close with his family and with his father, and that's where he got his sense of humor. And if you knew Dennis, you knew he had a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
He was also very close with his grandmother, who lived in a small place out back. And he said if Mom made something for dinner he didn't want, he'd go to Grandma's and get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. While in high school, Dennis met his high school sweetheart, Diane, and many lifelong friends. He later went to SIU in Edwardsville. Dennis and Diane got married and had 2 children, Doug and Kevin. After their divorce, he became a single father, and he did his best raising them with so much love and fun. One of the stories that I often heard Dennis telling was about him letting one of his stinky farts in the car and rolling up the windows and locking the doors to make the boys smell it. He loved his boys very much, and they had many, many fun times together. And you can just see the love in his heart when you see the pictures of him and his boys. Then Dennis met and married Kathy Scott, and she had 2 daughters, Carrie and Michelle. Dennis loved both of the girls very much, and he was so excited when they brought their children into his life. He loved Ian and Abby and Trent and Riley very much too. Even though his marriage with Kathy didn't work out, he continued to stay in touch with the girls and their family. Dennis was especially close to Carrie's husband, Aaron, and respected him a great deal. Aaron, you want to come up say a few words?
So it's not often that you see someone's ex-step-son-in-law talking at their funeral, but I think we can all agree that that's the kind of impact that Dennis had on our lives.
Oh, yeah.
That and the fact that my wife isn't good with speaking in front of a large group, so that leaves me the chance to talk about not only how my family knew him, but how I knew him. I don't know that there's anything much more that I'll be able to say that Rita hasn't already said or isn't going to say. Dennis came into our lives and he took us on quickly. He involved himself with us, he became a friend, he became a father, he became a grandfather for our children. We were fortunate enough to spend some time with him on a recent trip back here when he became a grandfather of his own children, and the joy and happiness that he shared with us in that time was incredible. For those of you that knew him, you knew he always brought laughter and sarcasm, making things a little lighter. And I think that every one of us that were scrolling through Facebook about a week ago got a pretty good dose of that. But he never took himself too seriously, but he took what he did seriously, and I think that's a good lesson for all of us to learn. He was also very sentimental, and while we were actually looking for photos, trying to help Rita out, we didn't come across very many of them, and that's because a lot of those pictures, Dennis was the one taking the pictures for us. And because of that, we have more photos of our loved ones lost that we can carry with us through the future. Dennis did remain a part of our lives despite our families going separate ways, and he didn't necessarily have to. He could have just gone his separate way too. But we were always happy to hear from him about his latest project, or what joke or video he had posted on Facebook, or just see where retirement was taking him. And we were truly blessed to have him in our lives, and we'll miss him very much.
Okay, so that brings us to 14 years ago today. And that's the day that I met him and he became a part of my life. A few days ago, I found a couple of notes that Dennis had left me on his phone. The first one talks about this day, so I'd like to share with you in his own words what he had to say about it. Now this one was written, it said, 6 years ago on the 3rd, I saw my wonderful, beautiful wife for the first time. We had been texting and talking before we met. We got to know each other through writing and talking on the phone. We discovered we had a lot of the same goals and ideologies, shared the same ideas about family and politics, which is hard these days. I found her to be a kind and loving soul, and our relationship accelerated from there. The first time we met, she was in a black dress and looked beautiful and sexy as hell. She had a big smile on her face when our eyes met. We had lunch at the Barrelhead, and we talked and shared our thoughts about many things. After the luncheon, we continued to talk and went to her house and watched Dancing with the Wolves. It was a great night meeting her for the first time. What we found in each other is a comfortable feeling, like what we were sharing was meant to be. We would finish each other's sentences on a regular basis, and we still did. It got weird. There was chemistry from the get-go. It didn't take me long to fall in love with her and her with me. I love you, Rita, with all my heart, as much then as I do now. This was truly meant to be. We are bound to grow old with each other. So after that night, we decided to make another date, and we decided to go out to dinner, and we went to Donnie B's Comedy Club. And any of you that knew us knew that we ended up with season passes there, and we went there quite a bit. But that was our actual first date. Dennis loved seeing the comedians and meeting them. And if you look back on the board out in the back, you see him with Kevin Pollak, and they're both giving each other the finger. He had a good time. He really did enjoy doing that. Not long after we met, Dennis's brother Mike got sick, and he lived in Florida, and Mike had cancer, and he was ready to die. So Dennis asked me if I would go with him down there, and so I did. Not an ideal way to meet somebody's family for the first time, going down to all that and all the chaos that went with it. But I did get to meet his mom and his sisters and his nephew and his son Kevin. That's when I met Kevin for the first time. And but it was funny because Dennis's mom tried to warn me not to get serious about him, and I'm glad I didn't listen. And it was also funny, earlier one of the girls that came through worked with him at UIS at the time we started meeting, and she shared another story with me about when he first met me and how smitten he was and how he was just so in love, and they kept trying to tell him to slow down, you know, and she said he didn't listen. So I guess I'm glad that neither one of us really listened. So when we did start dating, I warned Dennis of two things. Number one, if any of you knew my brother Dan and I were very close, and he was at my house every morning, helped me do things around the house, took care of my dogs, spoiled and rotten. So we were very comfortable with what we had, and so I told Dennis, I said, don't ever make me pick between you and my brother because you're gonna lose. And I didn't have to worry about it because they ended up getting along fine, and they worked hard. They built me a really nice gazebo out back to go with the hot tub, and we did a lot of work and stuff together, and we spent a lot of time together. So that definitely wasn't a worry. The second thing I told him is, I'm a bitch. Neither one of them seemed to scare him off. So he was warned. On my 52nd birthday, he asked me to marry him. So on April 23rd, 2011, we got married on Santa Rosa Beach in Florida, and my cousin Jera was our maid of honor, and his son Doug was our best man. The one thing that I will say about Dennis, from the first date I met him until he died, is all he tried to do was to make me happy. Just like any relationship, we had our ups and downs. We both loved our friends and family and gardening and traveling and even remodeling. However, he often reminded me that remodeling wasn't like watching an HGTV show, and that it didn't get done in an hour. It took a lot longer. Dennis also soon learned that I was also very close with my boys and my friends Patty and Annie. Patty had just lost her husband shortly before meeting Dennis, and he would often tease and say he had 2 wives, and he didn't need 2 women telling him what to do. But he had a heart of gold and never minded helping others out. If Dennis had one fault, it was his procrastination. And I can't tell you how many times I'd have to get it to her to keep him on things. And one example that I can laugh about now is he had to have this cement mixer when we lived here. And we had it for probably 3 years before we decided to move to Oregon. That cement mixer had to go with us to Oregon. That cement mixer is still sitting outside my garage, still not put together. But one thing is for sure, his positive traits definitely outweighed his faults. We had so many wonderful times together, traveling and spending times with friends. Dennis loved to laugh, and he was always trying to make me laugh. He'd tell me his silly jokes, and if I let a smile, he knew he had it. He knew he made me happy. It was something funny about it. Then he'd always tell me I didn't have a sense of humor. I just told him he wasn't funny. Dennis had worked at UIS for 30 years in the media services department. He was known as the AV go-to guy because he knew so much about both old school and new school technology. And several of the people that he worked with came up earlier, and they all shared stories about how he always went out of his way to help somebody. I mean, he was the one who set up those smart classrooms and stuff that a lot of us older people don't know a whole lot about. He knew his technology. However, once he retired from there, I said, you gotta find another job. Because if I'm gonna work, you're gonna work. So he got himself a job working for District 186 as a paraprofessional, or what was known as a one-on-one, to a special guy named Josh. And Josh was up here earlier. There's Josh now, or that was him then. He was here earlier. He stayed with him from 7th grade up through graduation, and they were very close. Dennis, there was no way Dennis was not going to finish and see Josh graduate from high school. And he stayed close with their family. They're awesome people, and so Josh was sharing some of the stories and some of the fun stuff, and that Dennis, he got to hear all the brunt of Dennis's jokes all day. And I also heard from one of the other kids that was in his class with him, and the young kid said that he had been a one-on-one for a guy in his class, but that he always went out of his way to make all the other kids feel comfortable, and they all laughed and they all had a great time. So when my retirement was getting close, we decided we wanted to continue our journey by moving to Oregon. We had the opportunity to help move my son Kyle and his wife Amy to Oregon as well, because they were living in the Phoenix area, and I wanted my kids, I wanted my family close together, and so we were able and lucky enough to make that happen. So both of my boys and my niece Holly and her family are out there, and we've spent the last 5 years working on our little house out there. We did a lot of remodeling on the inside, and even spent some time building our little outside paradise. Well, we spent lots and lots of blood, sweat, and tears in that backyard, and he built me a beautiful fountain and pond that he built from scratch. Well, Kevin came out and helped a little. When we first moved out there, the first thing we did is we rented a, what was that called, backhoe?
Yeah, a little mini
Excavator type of thing. And they dug up everything in the backyard. They dug the big pit for the pond. They made 2 pergola places and dining area type things outside. But that pond he built from scratch was definitely his pride and joy. And I'm so blessed that I'm going to get to enjoy it every day. We enjoyed traveling and exploring Oregon and spending holidays with my family and going to concerts with John. We also enjoyed coming back here to visit family and friends. He was so excited to come back last year for when Doug and Sam got married, and he was head over the moon to find out they were going to have a baby, and he was going to be a grandfather. His heart also broke last year for Kevin when Kevin lost his love, Bob. Dennis's health took a nasty turn last Christmas night, and he was diagnosed the next day with congestive heart failure, and it continued to worsen his kidney disease. He struggled breathing because he was retaining so much fluid. He went to all kinds of specialists, and they were working and they were monitoring him, and they were trying very hard, but he still continued to struggle. In late February, we decided to fly him back here so he could be here when the baby was born. He was also going to be helping Kevin out with some things to do. But he was so excited to hold his granddaughter Olivia for the first time. When he came home, I asked him how that felt. He said it was amazing. And then he stopped and he realized, he said, until I realized that I'm not going to be here to see her grow up. It broke my heart. But I truly believe that he is going to be by her side, guarding over her for her life. So that brings us to June 21st, 2024. I was in Springfield to attend 2 funerals. I was actually at one, speaking that day. We messaged back and forth in the morning. The last message was about 11 a.m. I messaged him a few times later and got no response. I called and I still didn't get a response. So I called my son Kyle to have him go check on him. Kyle only lives 6 blocks away. And when he went there, he was the one who found his body in the backyard. So I guess it was only fitting that that's where he died, because he loved it so much, and he was actually still trying to make me happy up until that last minute, because he was actually working on cleaning out the area where that cement mixer was. Now to the second note I found on his phone, and it was just titled Rita, and it started like this. If you are reading this, then you know I am no longer of this world. Please know that I loved you with all my heart and wish that we'd have many more years to be with each other. Everything has gone downhill so fast that it's hard to believe. I'm sorry that I didn't do more sooner, but I'm not sure that that might have helped, would have even helped much. Please make sure that Missy sees my body so that she knows I am no longer here and that I didn't abandon her. And we did do that, even before I found this note, because we had talked about it before. Please make sure that some lucky dog gets my pacemaker if that's possible. I'm going to miss you all, and I hope that this heaven thing is real so that I might see you all again. Move on with your life. You are a wonderful woman. You deserve to be happy. At least I can say that the last of my life, I was happy being in your life. Remember, the best place, here's a sense of humor again, the best place to find a wonderful man is not to be in the personals. We got lucky. Read the obituaries and look for the ones where it says, she leaves behind a wonderful and loving husband. There you go, a life hack that you can use. I love you and Missy, and I will miss you both terribly so, Dennis. P.S. And you guys, Aaron talked about this a minute ago. If you've seen on his Facebook page in the last week, you've seen this. Once I've been gone for a short while, please post on my Facebook status, it's not as hot as I thought it would be. So I want to, see if I can read it from this. The poem that we put on the back of his prayer card is called Remember Me, and it's by Margaret Mead. To the living I am gone, to the sorrowful I will never return, to the angry I was cheated, but to the happy I am at peace, and to be faithful, and to the faithful I have never left. I cannot be seen, but I can be heard. So as you stand upon a shore, gazing at the beautiful sea, remember me. As you look in awe at the mighty forest and the grand majesty, remember me. As you look upon a flower and admire its simplicity, remember me. Remember me in your heart, your thoughts, your memories of the times we loved, the times we cried, the times we fought, and the times we laughed. For if you think of me, I will never be gone. Thank you guys all again, everybody, for coming.